Okay, so we're speaking about the afterlife already and the journey of the soul thereafter, after this world, particularly the first step of that journey, which is what is called in Hebrew kafakela, or the purgatory of the grave. And really it speaks of the journey of the soul, in which the soul has to upgrade its system, or upgrade its software, to use a computer language. And that is because it is about to enter the Garden of Eden. It is about to enter the paradise, where God's glory is in full display, and where a person basks in that light, in that divine light. Now, if a person is too materialistic or too worldly, then it will be very, very hard for that person to transition from a very materialistic world to a very heavenly and spiritual one. And therefore, there is a process called kafakela, this process that we're speaking about, that really talks about how the soul has to be cleansed from its materialistic blemishes, even from its sins, in all sorts of ways. We spoke about this idea that the soul is being almost forced to watch a movie of its life. By the way, it's not that if you lived 120 years, you're going to have to sit there for 120 years to watch the movie of your life, because there's a concept of time. It's above time. But particularly those places in which we did sin, we did falter. And then the soul, now watching it from a heavenly perspective, is deeply affected by those moments, because it says to itself, gosh, I should have known better. Gosh, I'm embarrassed by that. Now, God doesn't show those moments to the soul just to punish it, but really it's to cleanse those blemishes of the soul, so that the soul is eventually ready for paradise. The more worldly a person was, the more materialistic a person was, or the more immersed in materialistic pleasures a person was, the more a person turned this world into his or her only world, the harder it will be for the person to upgrade and to eventually transition to paradise. And that's the story we told, and then we'll continue the story you told about this wagon driver. He did a big mitzvah, and when he was asked, what do you want as your reward in afterlife, he said, I want a wagon. What was it? A new wagon with 6 mighty horses.
Yeah.
Right? Because that was his only world. So in a place like that, you can't really be transition to paradise. You're still in your wagon, you're still in your horses. And I think, as mentioned, and then we'll continue here on the middle of page 212, that the Tanya is emphasizing this point, not to frighten us, not to say, hey, look what's waiting for you after 120 years, but rather so that we can work on ourselves here, right now, in this world, during our lifetime, to upgrade the system right here, so that we can become more spiritual right here as we are living now, so that we can see the world not in a worldly manner, but in a heavenly manner. And so that we can also live more refined and heavenly lives, and bask in God's glory already now. Then that transition will be also much smoother. Okay, let's continue here with that final paragraph about the stage of the purgatory of the grave, or kafakela, without a certain reconditioning. Does anyone want to read? Anyone?
I'll read.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay. Without a certain reconditioning, a soul cannot enter Gan Eden, because there is nothing for it to do there. A free ticket to a concert is not a present that a person who does not appreciate music can enjoy. Likewise, a soul cannot simply be given a ticket to Gan Eden. If it does not have the capacity to appreciate what it will find there, it won't be in Gan Eden at all, but in limbo. Thus, the hollow of the sling is not a punishment or chastisement, but a refinement that a soul must undergo in order to proceed to its destination. The soul need not undergo any transformation. It is essentially and inherently divine. Only a process of divestment of the experiences of the material world in order to attain a higher level of existence.
Right. Okay. So the words speak for themselves, but maybe we'll be a little more practical. Let's think about this in a very practical way. So if I have to tell my 4-year-old son, hey, if you do this, then I'll give you a reward, then of course my 4-year-old son won't enjoy a good book as a reward. He'll enjoy, I don't know, a soccer ball or a rocket ship, toy rocket ship or whatever it is, what's on his level. So how can I, as a parent, upgrade his system so that eventually he does enjoy a good book? I start telling him stories at night. I start exposing him to maybe books on his level, and eventually he'll grow into reading those good books that I had in mind. That's how we start, right? That's how we educate our children. So that's the way we should educate ourselves too. How can I really enjoy the heavens? How can I lead my soul really to the smoothest transition possible? By exposing it in this world to heavenly delights. What are heavenly delights? Mitzvahs. That's heavenly delights. So the more mitzvahs we do, the more mitzvahs we're exposed to and we execute, the more elevated our soul will be, and the more spiritual we'll become. And in a way, the easier the transition eventually will be. But that's the way to educate our own selves as we would educate our own children. Let's remember that the heavens are there, but we can draw the heavens down to our own earth and to our own lives with mitzvahs, because those are direct commandments indeed from the heavens. And that's what Rabbi Steinsaltz would often say. We think that Torah is from heaven. It's not true. Torah is heaven. And the more we expose ourselves to it, the more we become heavenly. That's really the way to execute these words and to be as practical as possible. That's the idea. Okay. I'd love to hear your comments, disagreements, questions. Otherwise, we can continue, but please feel free to speak your minds, speak your hearts, or better, even speak your souls. Okay. All right, let's continue. Bottom of page 212, with regard to forbidden speech.
Should I continue?
Yes, yeah, why not, Margot? Go for it.
But with regard to forbidden speech, such as scoffing and speaking ill of another, and the like, which stem from the three completely profane klipot. When a person scoffs at things that it is forbidden to scoff at, that is, scoffing that insults a fellow human being, this is not just idle chatter, but a sin in itself, something that is a sewer and cannot be made right by holy intention. Thus, this is not the casualty
Causality.
that chapter 1 mentioned, which is from Klipat Noga, that is the permissible element of Klipa. Speaking ill of another, Lashon Hara, is another outright prohibition performed through speech. It is a grave sin not to only slander and defame a fellow by means of falsehoods, but also to relate a truth that is to his detriment. This too is speech that is bound to the evil of the three totally profane klipot, for which the hollow of the sling alone does not suffice to cleanse and remove the profanity of the soul, but it must descend into Gehenna.
Right. Let's stop there right now, and then we'll continue. But just to explain these Kabbalistic terms, and then we'll delve into this a little more deeply. But there are prohibitions that stem from Klipat Noga, which means the neutral zone, as we've been referring to. And there are prohibitions that stem from Shalosh Klipot Meot, which means the department of impurity in this world, things that cannot be touched and certainly cannot be transformed, therefore. We can't even try to transform impurity because they're impure at their very core until God will decide otherwise, maybe when Mashiach comes. But the neutral zone, going back to that, it all depends on how we use it, right? So food can be very good, can be very bad. If we eat like an animal, if we use the energy of the food to then do bad, then we transform that neutral zone into bad. That's the Klipat Noga, right? Just to refresh our memory. Shalosh Klipat Meot, the levels of impurity are, for example, like he's saying here, gossiping. There's no two way about this. Gossiping is impure. Gossiping is prohibited. Gossiping is forbidden. And it's not like someone would say, well, I'm gossiping to elevate my speech and to eventually transform my gossip into something positive. No, I'm sorry. Don't touch it. Gossiping is forbidden, period. There's no playing around with it. That's the Shalosh Klipot Meot. Now, here in this context, it's seen as one of the greatest sins. to gossip is really one of the greatest sins, because as the Talmud explains, gossip is spiritual murder. You can kill someone physically, God forbid, by, all sorts of ways, but you can also kill someone emotionally, spiritually. How do you do that? Not with a knife or with a gun as you would do physically, but with words. Gossip can really murder a person. That's what it clearly says in the Talmud, and the Zohar elaborates on this, and the Baal Shem Tov even speaks about this quite a bit. One of the great books that speak about it is the Chafetz Chaim, authored in the 1930s by Rabbi Yisrael Kagan, who was known for his book, Chafetz Chaim, which really means, I would encourage everyone to study it. It's not an easy book to study, but it's an important book to study about all the different laws of gossiping. And they include not just direct gossiping, but they include also even positive gossiping. So, for example, if I'm speaking positively about a person, but it can be interpreted in a bad way, then I shouldn't say anything. Oh, he's speaking positively because really he's trying to cover up the blemishes of that person. So then you can't say anything. So there's many layers to that area of gossip. But again, it's seen as one of the worst sins. It's a sin, therefore, that demands the soul to transition not just into some type of cleansing, like what we're speaking about, but really into Gehenna, which is hell, which he'll describe what it means. And again, there's no punishment in Judaism. Punishments are not punishments per se, they are consequences. And there are consequences for a specific goal. And that goal is to, as mentioned, upgrade the system, to enable us then to elevate ourselves to the next level. But just going back to gossip, they say, I think I've mentioned this in the past, but they say that the word in Hebrew for speaking, ledaber or dibur, is the same word as the word for bees. Remember that? And that's because words are like bees. Bees produce honey, or God forbid, they can sting, right? So too, our words can produce honey or can sting. Now, what's amazing is this. What happens to bees when they sting? They die.
Mm-hmm.
So too, when we sting and we use our words to gossip and sting others, then we die. We die a spiritual death. There's a little bit of death in us. We're entrenched now in this world of shalosh klipot atmeot, and therefore it affects us. And shalosh klipot atmeot eventually is the world of impurity, which at its core is death. So we're affected by this, just like bees. Now, therefore, we have to be as careful as possible with our words, because that has that type of impact on us. Now, I'll take it a step further, and I will say that, gossip also is one of those things that can destroy societies. Especially in our day and age, where world travels so fast. Winston Churchill, who lived in a time without Facebook and without internet and without, all these means that we have today to spread our words as quickly as the sound of sound, or the sound of light, or the speed of sound, speed of light. But he would say that, what's his expression? That lies travel the world before truth has time to put its pants on. You remember that expression? Now, if that was true in Winston Churchill's times, it's a million times more true in our times, where world really does travel very fast because of all the means, all the social media means that we have, and so on and so forth. The problem is this, that back then, when you had to actually work to transmit a word, right? If you had to send a telegram to the other side of the world, you had to think, I only have a certain limit of words to send, so I have to think before I actually write. And the words that did travel back then were words that were thought of, and therefore words maybe that were also freer, not completely free, but freer of gossip, of negativity. Today, no one thinks before they write. Why? Because it's free. You don't have to send a telegram and pay an enormous amount of money. It's free. Just go, hit the mouse, hit the click button, and you'll have your word spread to thousands of people. And the more followers you have on Twitter, the more your word spreads. But you don't have to think, because it's just a click of the mouse. That's where the danger lies. And it could really destroy societies, as mentioned, because of that gift that we were given today of the internet. But it's a gift that can be really ruined and can be contaminated and even spoiled because of people that are just simply irresponsible and don't think before they speak, don't think before they write. So today, this concept of gossip should be thought of 1,000,000 times more than it was thought of ever before in history, because of the means that we have. And to use the expression of the Kotzker Rebbe, one of my favorite quotes, he would very often say, by Menachem Mendel Morgenstern, some 250 years ago, that not everything that is thought should be said, not everything that is said should be written, not everything that is written should be published, not everything that is published should be read. That's the truth. And it's a good reminder, especially in our day and age, where world travels quicker than it ever did before. Anyhow, that's the idea. I feel like I'm speaking too much. Does anyone want to share comments? Disagree? Anything?
I think the problem is that some people do think what propaganda they should spread.
Mm.
It's not that they don't think, they do think in an evil way.
Right. Right. That's true. That's true. That's when it becomes even more dangerous. Right. That's why the Kotzker, back to the Kotzker Rebbe, not everything that one thinks should be said. That's right. Just keep it up there. Or don't keep it up there at all. Don't let it become toxic, but that's already your problem. It won't become the world's problem. You're right.
Hey,
Yeah.
Rabbi, have you ever heard of reverse gossip, or being positive in what you say to other people?
Right. Go ahead, please.
Is there any commentary about that? Like Amy Tyre said, Rabbi Alush had a great group this morning, something like that, putting that out in the universe.
I don't know. I wouldn't trust everything your wife says.
I know, but like that's the exact opposite. I'm just wondering if there's anything that
No, you're right.
that
You're right.
talks about that.
Yeah, one of the ways indeed really to overcome gossip is to do the exact opposite. And that is to speak positively, not just about others, but to speak positively in general. Now, one has to be careful with that though. And that's why I think there's some caution towards positive speaking, because as mentioned before, sometimes it can be interpreted negatively. So you have to be careful that it doesn't turn into gossip, as it could. But in most cases, I don't think it does. So you're absolutely right. One of the ways to work on our speech, on our words, is to only fill our mouths with positivity. Now, I would go even further, and that is that I would fill our mouths not just with positivity, but with holiness, as the Tanya is about to say too. But that is that the more we practice words of Torah, we say words of Torah, we share ideas of Torah, holy words, the more our mouth becomes holy, and the holier it is, the more I think allergic it becomes to gossip. And people who gossip, to analyze this further, and thank you for bringing this up, but people who gossip, it's because they are empty and they're looking for drama, or they're bored and looking for drama, or they're shallow and they're looking to fill that hollow place. And maybe they're even negative. People who are full of goodness, full of holiness, are allergic. They don't have, first of all, they don't have time for gossip, but also they are allergic to gossip. It's almost like the physical body. If my physical body is healthy, then, and I eat a piece of pizza, my body will reject it. If it's not healthy, I could eat as much pizza as I want. The more a person is holy also spiritually, the more allergic it becomes to negativities, to gossip. So the more, therefore, we fill our mouths, not just with positive words, but I will go a step further. With holy words, the more it becomes holy, and therefore, the more allergic it will be to gossip. You know, to simplify this thought, I would use what I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, right? That small minds, how does that go? Small minds speak about people, average minds speak about events, and great minds speak about ideas. So fill your mouth with ideas, with holy ideas. And then you become almost not immune completely, but at least half immune to gossip and to other things.
It also becomes a habit. I
Right.
think. When you speak good things, you continue to speak good things,
Right.
I
Right.
think.
Right.
I don't know.
Very, very good. That's right. Yeah. Now, the other way to deal with this, that's one aspect of really being proactive about gossip. Another method of being proactive about gossip is to really analyze ourselves. And I think we're at the footsteps now of the month of analysis. You know, yesterday we blessed in Shul, we blessed the upcoming month of Elul, which starts this coming Shabbat. And on Sundays, Rosh Chodesh Elul. The month of Elul is the month prior to the high holiday seasons, to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and all these holidays coming, Sukkot and so on. But the month of Elul is a month of introspection. That's why the name Elul in Aramaic means to search. So we have to search within ourselves. Now, the other way to fight gossip is to search within ourselves and ask ourselves, really, why are we so bitter to speak about others? People who speak about others, it's because they're bitter about themselves. They just project their bitterness on others. So why are we so bitter? Is it because we're not maybe actualizing our God-given purpose? If we were actualizing our God-given purpose, we would feel the opposite of bitter. We would feel fulfilled. We would feel even sweet and happy inside. When a person doesn't actualize his or her godly purpose in life, when we are not channels of goodness and kindness in this world, we become bitter because our soul feels it and our soul is irritated. And our soul is telling us, hey, you're not in your right mode. You're not where you are supposed to be. Now, if we're refined, we can hear that irritation of the soul and change our ways. If we're not refined, we say to our soul, excuse my language, shut up, soul. I don't want to hear you. And that suffocation of the soul only creates more bitterness. So during this month, we have to really analyze ourselves and say, are we really fulfilling the purpose for which we were created? If we have a skill, a talent, am I actualizing it? It's as small as that. If I'm an artist, am I giving myself an outlet to be that artist? And if it's not full-time, maybe part-time. If I play the piano, do I really use that? And then it goes to bigger questions. If I am supposed to be God's ambassador in this world of kindness, and I have an inclination to kindness, am I being the kindest person I can be? Or am I just smiling at others and that's all I do? Which is good enough. But if you have an inclination to kindness, maybe you should do more. So we have to ask these big questions during the month of Elul. And I think the more a person is in line with his true self, the less bitter a person is, and therefore the less bitterness will come out of his mouth. That's the root of gossip. The root of gossip does not start with the mouth. The root of gossip really starts with the soul. And if the soul is given a full ability, full room to express itself, then a person will be full of soulfulness and therefore of goodness. Therefore, no bitterness will come out of it. But if the soul is not given that room for expression, if it's being suffocated and if it's being shut down each time, then a person will feel very bitter. One of the great verses in the Torah is about the Jewish nation, that after the splitting of the Red Sea, 3 days later, they come to a place and they start complaining, as they did many times during the 40-year journey in the desert. What are they complaining about? They tell Moses, we have no water to drink. And because the water that is here is bitter, we can't drink it. So the verse tells us, they could not drink water from Marah, which was the name of the place, because they were bitter. So the literal translation is that they could not drink the water from Marah because the waters were bitter. Marim hem, they were bitter. The waters were bitter. Again, going back to the Kotzker Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Morgenstern, he would say they could not drink the waters from Marah because they were bitter, not the waters. The people were bitter. And when you bitter, even sweet waters taste bitter. Maybe the waters were sweet, but you were bitter. So we can give you the sweetest water and you'll still feel like they're bitter. So work on yourself, go to the root. The more sweet you are, the sweeter the waters will be. And it's a sad truth of life. People that are bitter and that taste bitterness and that spread bitterness through gossip, it's because they themselves are bitter. Why are they bitter? Because the soul is not given room for expression. They're not really being the channels of God in this world. Or maybe they are, but part-time or not part-time, part-time of part-time. And that creates bitterness. So going back to that comment, yes, positive speech and even holy speech is necessary, but I think what's most necessary is going to the very root of it. And that is to allow our soul to unleash its light and to allow ourselves to become God's ambassadors of goodness. And then indeed, no bitterness will come from us because we'll be channels to only good.